Vi har fått med oss Kristina Skovsgaard fra Democrats Abroad Norway og Austin Rasmussen fra Republicans Abroad Norway. Rasmussen, du forstår godt norsk, men du svarer på engelsk i dag, og vi starter med deg, for det ser altså ut til at Trump blir USAs neste president. Vi venter bare på resultatene i Alaska. Hva er din reaksjon?
Alaska is my home state, and that's where my vote is, and it definitely will go Trump's way. But he doesn't need Alaska. I think we are in landslide territory for Trump's victory here, as far as the Electoral College goes. As far as the popular vote goes, even though that's not really relevant in American politics, it does look like that's going to go his way as well. It's been a long night, but a fantastic night. It's been an exciting night, and there's no other way to characterize tonight's developments other than arguably the most historic political comeback in American history. So obviously I'm looking forward to Trump's next term, second term as president, and in the first 2 years of that, at least, he should be able to get a lot of his platform in place with having both houses of Congress as well.
Hva tror du er grunnen til at Trump har klart å få til et såpass stort comeback?
It depends on who you ask and where you go regionally to ask that question. The two main pain points for America right now is economy and immigration. And Trump spoke to those two issues, and he spoke effectively to those two issues. And I think that was lacking in our counterparts. In a broader picture, Trump also represents to many Americans a challenge to the status quo, which isn't working for a lot of Americans, namely the working class and the younger generation. Trump has done a remarkable job at rebranding the Republican Party as the party of the working class and framing the Democrat Party accurately so as the party of the elite and the privileged. And so this is a remarkable comeback for him, and he's done a big part of his victory today is because he effectively maintained the morale amongst his base for the last 4 years, which I'm not sure a lot of politicians could have maintained that momentum over that period so consistently year after year leading up to this election.
Kristina, hva var det Harris ikke klarte nå i dette valget?
I think she should have spoken much more about the economy. I mean, when we look at the economical platforms that Biden has and her have put together, the economy in the United States, according to the world, is doing pretty well. I mean, my husband gets the many financial papers, and you know, he reads, and he's Norwegian, and he says, oh, you know, the United States economy is doing very well by all measures. The wages are up, down, unemployment is down, but people are not feeling it because of the fact that there is inflation. And when I was in Chicago as a delegate, I was stopped by a journalist, excuse me, who asked me, what do you think of the economy? And I thought it was even kind of strange that she stopped and asked me, because I certainly don't look like any economist. And I said, well, I think the economy is doing pretty well. But she said, well, what about inflation? I said, you know, everybody talks about inflation, but inflation is worldwide. It doesn't just limit to the United States. And I think that the Democratic Party should have focused much more on that particular aspect, that there is global inflation. I mean, we have it here in Norway as well. It isn't just isolated to the United States. And I think that was one of the mistakes they made in their campaigning, is they did not talk enough about the economy.
Ja, også nordmenn bryr seg om økonomi, som du er inne på. Rasmussen, mange nordmenn vil jo identifisere seg kanskje mest med det demokratiske partiet, men senest for noen uker siden så viste en undersøkelse fra Ipsos med over 1100 spurte at nesten halvparten av unge norske menn i alderen 18 til 29 ville stemt på Donald Trump dersom de kunne stemme ved det amerikanske valget. Hva tenker du om det?
There is a shift happening in the younger generation, and there's a lot of reason for that. Earlier I mentioned again that Trump represents a challenge to the status quo, and I think we'll start to see that brand of politician throughout Europe. We have already seen it begin here, and a big part of it being specific to young men is you have not just Donald Trump, but the company he keeps is a brand of different brands of personalities, but one thing they share in common is that they're telling young men that they do in fact matter, that is important, that they not only are young men, that they grow up and become young men, and that they become fathers, and that they become caretakers, and that what their inclinations are as men is important and valuable to society. And there are a lot of young men out there who are navigating this world and feeling lost and feeling disconnected and feeling kind of pushed into the corner. And so I think that poll is just the beginning, and we're seeing the ground is moving in that generation.
Dere to I dag for å hjelpe oss litt med å forstå hvorfor amerikanerne stemmer og har stemt slik de har gjort, og så det skarpe skillelinjer mellom partiene deres. Forstår du hvorfor Trump appellerer sånn til det amerikanske folk?
Well, yeah, I personally have difficulty understanding that because, I mean, the man certainly doesn't appeal to me in any way. I mean, I feel like he can hardly finish a sentence, but I certainly do hope that he steps up to the job and actually doesn't become an isolationist. And I also feel that many Americans are probably disappointed, particularly, like you was mentioned, a lot of young men, a lot of young people feel left out of society, especially those that are less educated. And they just don't feel like they have the same chances. I mean, we've all seen that series in Norway, UXA, so we've seen that portion of the United States. It's not all of the United States. I think it's a one-sided representation, but those people are pretty much Trump supporters. So we have to acknowledge that problem does exist, and I do wish the Republican Party well, honestly, I do, because it is our new reality whether we like it or not.
Så må vi snakke litt vi har snakket om økonomi, vi har snakket om innvandring, viktige temaer I årets valg, men også abort var viktig for spesielt amerikanske kvinner, noe Harris snakket mye om. Men tror du at USA ikke klar for en kvinnelig president ennå?
Tydeligvis ikke. Apparently not. But it's difficult for me today because, I mean, it's such a... I did expect that it could be a possibility that Donald Trump would win. I didn't realize that he would have such a big win. I mean, he's not just taken the presidency. We see the House and the Senate have gone that way. So he will be able to do more or less what he wants. And we're going to be having a Supreme Court that will be, if there's another justice that's put in, that will be, again, on that side. So it's going to be very difficult going forward. That there won't be the checks and balances that we normally have in the United States. And that's a big worry for me, that we do not have those checks and balances anymore.
Mens Rasmussen, du glad på en dag som I dag, tenker at Trump løsningen. Hva forventer du at Trump tar tak I når han da blir president?
Namely, it will be addressing economic and immigration issues, the border policies that were erased by the Biden administration 4 years ago, I think will be resurrected, and he'll be looking at solving that as quickly as he can. I think he will have a more hands-on approach as far as resolving the conflict in Ukraine and Israel. So I look forward to seeing how that pans out. For me personally, as a voter, I'm looking forward to the deregulation aspect and the economic aspects. In his first term, one of the most appealing parts of Trump to me, in voting for him, was that in the executive branch of government, he said for every because one problem we have in the United States is a similar problem that we have here in Norway, and that is the vast majority of rules and regulations that govern our day-to-day lives are implemented by bureaucrats that can't be fired. And in the United States, a lot of those bureaucrats exist within the executive branch of government. And one policy he put in place in his first term was to order that any new regulation that came out of the federal branch of the executive branch of government, 2 old ones had to be removed. And if things go my way, as far as I understand it, he plans on implementing the same policy, but instead of 2, it will be 10 policies need to be removed. So that is a major appealing aspect of Trump is the deregulation aspect. But generally speaking, it is that challenge to the status quo. I hope he comes back to the presidency. I hope he learned something from his first term. He chooses chooses very carefully who he surrounds himself with in his cabinet. And I hope he shakes up and cleans out Washington, D.C. and a lot of the people there that have been pulling the strings of our nation.
Da fikk du siste ordet, Rasmussen. Takk skal dere ha for at dere kom hit i studio. Donald Trump erklærer seier i presidentvalget i USA, bare en delstat unna å bli USAs neste president.